So Sonic Origins finally released last year, and I thought, hey, why don't I finally get my thoughts on the game out? But seriously, there's been a lot going on this past year that has delayed this review. First, I wanted to get my redives of the Classic series done before doing Origins, but it took almost a month to get the first one done. Then in August, I got a promotion at work, which meant I was now working more hours and had less time to work on videos. Then in September, I went to visit my friend Loxy, who lives over 2 hours away, and I wasn't able to bring my computer with me. Then in October, I went to visit my dad and his side of my family in Kentucky, and I got sick. Had a case of RSV, which left my voice really hoarse for a few weeks. Then in November, Sonic Frontiers came out, and seeing the positive reception to it compared to the mixed reception of Origins, I decided to do my Frontiers review first. But the immediate weekend after the game came out, I was out of town for the Sonic at Sega Fan Jam Remix event in Marietta, Georgia. And just so you all know, I live on the outskirts of Chicago, Illinois, so, you know, it's pretty far from home. Had a fun time though, got to meet Sam Procrastinates, one of my favorite Sonic tubers and someone who's a great inspiration to me. And I also got to meet the legend himself, Ryan Drummond.
Hey Jackie, nice to meet you. Aw, yeah, this is happening.
Then in December, I went to Kentucky to visit my dad again for Christmas, and came back sick again, this time with just a regular cold. Seriously, if I had a nickel for every time I went to visit my family and came back sick last year, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? After that, I got to work on my Sonic 3 and Knuckles redive, but then work started to pick up, and I had even less time to work on videos, and then in March, I got sick again, another regular cold. But that wasn't the last time I got sick, because just a month later, in April, I got sick again, this time with COVID. Seriously, I don't know how I managed to make it over 3 years without getting COVID once, but it finally caught up to me this year. Anyway, after that little unlucky sick spree, I was back to work on videos and got my Sonic 3 and Knuckles redive done. Then I finally began working on this video. Now, the initial draft of this script was written back in July of last year, so after the intro card, I won't be mentioning Origins Plus at all until the end of the video. Also, I am aware that a lot of bugs got patched in August, but considering how ridiculous they were, I'm going to mention them. And if a bug got patched, I will mention that, but still, some of these bugs are just ridiculous. So without further ado, at the last possible moment, here is my review of Sonic Origins. Sonic Origins was first announced in the Sonic Central 2021 event, but all we knew about it was called Sonic Origins, and it contained Sonic 1, 2, CD, and 3 and Knuckles. We then went almost a year hearing absolutely nothing about it, and then out of nowhere in April 2022, a full trailer with a release date was dropped online. The trailer revealed some key elements of this collection, the main one being that it contained the remastered Retro Engine versions of Sonic 1, 2, and CD, as well as a Retro Engine version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Finally! After almost a decade, we were finally getting proper console and PC releases of the Retro Engine Sonic 1 and 2, bringing the CD remaster to modern consoles since it was already on PS3, Xbox 360, and PC, and we were finally getting the much-anticipated Retro Engine version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This was amazing news! The fans had been asking for this for a long time. How in the world did they manage to completely fuck it up? Yeah, let's cut right to the chase. Sonic Origins was a major disappointment. The collection is still good, but it could have been great, and that's the problem. So I'm going to talk about each game individually, but since I've already covered these versions of Sonic 1, 2, and CD, I won't spend as long on them. The only major addition to this version of Sonic 1 is the drop dash from Mania being added. However, it feels more like the Forces drop dash instead of the Mania drop dash, and that's because any additions made to these versions of Sonic 1, 2, and CD that weren't in their initial releases last decade were done by Sonic Team and not Christian Whitehead or Headcanon. Also, for some reason, the music here is the original Genesis version instead of the remastered version from 2013. The same thing goes for Sonic 2. I honestly would have liked to have seen at least an option to choose between the two. So now let's shift gears to Sonic CD. Yes, Sonic CD. This collection finally confirms that Sonic CD is in fact set in between Sonic 1 and 2. Once again, the only real addition here is the drop dash, which actually makes traveling through time a whole lot easier. Moving over to Sonic 2, I only have 3 things to mention with this version. 1, the drop dash is here, and it still feels jank. 2, they added the option to play as Knuckles and Tails, why only in this game and not the others? And 3, Tails' AI is broken. He never despawns, so when he's too far off screen, he'll just keep jumping endlessly and blaring out your ears with the jump sound effect! This is one of the bugs that got patched, but still, I don't know how the hell this happened to begin with. And finally, it's time to talk about Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Yes, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. There's no option to play them separately, it's just the combined version, which I feel is a good thing. And unlike the others, which were just ports of already existing remasters with the drop dash added, this one was built from the ground up. Kinda. It was developed by Headcanon, a dev team led by Simon Tomley, aka Stealth, who had major roles in the other 3 games and Sonic Mania. In fact, modders found out that this version of Sonic 3 was built on top of Mania's code. There are even still some leftover assets from Mania in the files. Christian Whitehead, meanwhile, had no involvement as far as I'm aware. So let's talk about the good things that were added. First, the drop dash is here, but since this version is built on top of Mania, it actually feels normal. There's also a new cutscene for Tails, and some tiny details added, like Tails walking in behind Sonic instead of flying in, and Knuckles being in a fighting stance instead of just standing. Also, one major thing I love about this version, they added Big Arm back in! Yes! This is exactly what I wanted to happen, and they delivered! Don't know why he can't hurt Supersonic anymore, though. Also, when you defeat him, the Eggmobile crashes on the floor, causing the Death Egg to crash, instead of it just spontaneously combusting like in the original. Also, they created a front-facing Egg Robo sprite for the Flying Battery boss. They added new looking up and down sprites for the barrels in Carnival Night, giving better feedback to help with the Barrel of Doom, and they gave Tails a new hyper form. Kinda. Actually, what they did is they made Super Tails able to transform with the Chaos Emeralds, but he doesn't have his
Flicky Army of Death.
And what was referred to as Super Tails in the original game is now called Hyper Tails. Okay, that's the good stuff. Now let's talk about the bad stuff. First off, we all knew going in that the Michael Jackson versions of the songs weren't going to be used due to copyright issues, but we also knew about the prototype versions which they could use instead, especially since the prototypes sounded really good compared to the PC versions. So, we figured it would sound pretty good here. What the fuck happened here? According to Katie... Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that. The current social media manager for Sega of America, Jun Sonoe, guitarist for Crush 40 and one of the many composers of almost every Sonic game, created new versions of songs for Origins based on the demo tapes from the early 90s. I don't want to say she was lying, perhaps she was misinformed or it was a translation error, but I highly doubt that. Why? Because of the new Super theme. June composed a new super theme for this game instead of having it play the invincibility music on loop, and it sounds... Yeah, it sounds straight up like something from Sonic 4. This is why I don't think Jun made new versions, because if he did, they would sound like something from Sonic 4, just like the Super theme. So, there are two possibilities on what happened. Either he took the MIDIs from the PC version, converted them to a Genesis synthesizer, and put that in the game, or, more likely, he used versions of the songs from an earlier prototype than the one currently available online. Why do I think this one is more likely? Because of Launch Base Act 2. For some reason, the 1997 PC version of Launch Base Act 2 has a bunch of wrong notes. And the Origins version doesn't. There's something else that contributes to that theory. All of the music in this version of Sonic 3 sounds super compressed. And it's not a filter added in-game, it's in the raw files. My guess as to why this is that they didn't have access to the raw files for these versions of the prototype songs, so Jun recorded them off of an actual Mega Drive and did the same for the final versions of every other song and sound effects, so these wouldn't sound so out of place. Problem is, they already sound out of place even without the compression. Also, there's this random bug in the special stages. My guess as to why this happened is because in Mania there was no Tails AI for the Blue Sphere minigames, so they had to code it in from scratch, but didn't have the time to fix this bug. So in addition to these 4 games, there's a lot of extra stuff added. Firstly, each game now has animated intros and outros showing the story. CD already had an intro and outro, but they decided to add new ones for some reason. The old ones are still here, and honestly, these look really good. This is the cleanest they have ever looked. Also, there's a new story mode, which has you play through all 4 games in chronological order, and the cutscenes help transition between each game. Each game has an anniversary mode, which plays in widescreen with the lives disabled in favor of this new coin system, which can be used to buy art and music in the extras menu, or restart a special stage if you fail at it. And a classic mode, which plays in 4x3 with lives added. Firstly, I love that you can now retry the special stages immediately if you fail. It really helps. But here's the issue. Classic mode is still the retro engine versions of the games, just in a 4x3 aspect ratio. Why is that an issue? Because before this game released, Sega delisted the games from the storefronts, the only exception being the Sega Ages versions on Switch. However, those versions were the original versions, except for CD, so now people don't have an official way to play the original versions if they want. This is something I hadn't even considered until Sam Procrastinates brought it up in his review, but after hearing him say it, I totally agree with it. Anniversary mode should have been the retro engine versions with the option to choose between 16x9 and 4x3, as well as choosing between lives and coins. And classic mode should have been emulated versions of the originals. Now, I know that might have caused some issues with the music for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, except that the team working on the new version of 3 and Knuckles consists of hackers and modders. They could have asked them to create an official ROM hack that replaced the copyrighted music with the prototype versions. There's also a boss rush mode, which is okay. Not great, but not terrible either. My main issue is that your ring count doesn't carry from boss to boss, and some boss arenas don't have any rings, so you have to do some of these without taking damage. Then there's mirror mode, which is exactly as it sounds. You play the games backwards. Gonna be honest, kinda hard to get used to. And then there's mission mode, which has an abundance of gray blocks, something modern games are very well known for. The missions themselves are actually pretty fun, and it's a good way to get more coins for the shop or special stages. As for the playable characters, in all 4 games you can play as Sonic or Tails, and you can play as Knuckles in Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and Knuckles. Why can't you play as him in CD? Because fuck you, that's why. And what about Amy? She's featured prominently in the promo art, the intro cutscene, and the outro cutscene. Nope. Can't play as her. Also, the footage you've been seeing for my review is actually way cleaner than the game actually looks. That's because the game, for whatever reason, doesn't use nearest neighbor scaling, so everything looks super blurry. This is an issue fans fixed day 1, and I had this mod enabled for the whole recording because it looks so much better. And the game also has DRM in it. Which, why? Mania had it at launch and it doesn't work. It just slows the performance down. There's a reason why it got removed from Mania. So overall, is Sonic Origins good? Yes, of course it is. You'd have to be really incompetent to fuck up the classics. Wait. But in all seriousness, it's a fine collection, all things considered, but it's not the definitive way to play these games. Well, it is the definitive way to play them if you have them on consoles, but on PC, it's not. Sonic 1 Forever, Sonic 2 Absolute, Sonic CD Restored, and Sonic 3 Air are all much better options, and they all require legal versions of the games to run, so there you go. If you truly want to play these versions of the games, or you don't have a PC, then buy it at a discount. $40 is way too much for this. Overall, I give Sonic Origins a 6.5 out of 10. Again, not a bad game, but it could have been better. So with that done, I've got one more redive to do before continuing the marathon. So I'll see you all next time with my thoughts on Sonic Origins Plus.